welcome to round 10 of the GB3 Championship here at Snetterton. I'm John Jackson with Piers Pryor alongside me. And the last time out, it was Spa. And I mean, what an iconic track that we saw 3 exciting races at. And really, there's one driver that came away from Spa just with you know, the best weekend he could have hoped for, and that is Alex Dunn with High Tech.
Yeah, what a weekend for Alex Dunn. He showed he had great pace in qualifying. Didn't think he quite showed as much as he could have done, and then really in the races just rumped away. Even though Callum Boyson got good starts in both race 1 and race 2, his pace was just too much to handle. Got past both times, pulled away, and then in race 3 came through the field to finish solidly inside the top 10 as well. Yeah,
and we can see Gerard Jay behind us there with Hill Speed. A great weekend for him, some good results. But that now means that Alex Dunn is just 2 points behind. That means Callum Boyson now 2 points behind the leader, Joseph Loke. Things have closed up with his great results, and then Alex Dunn up to 3rd place now. So we're really starting to see those drivers emerge, you know, the title contenders now, aren't we?
Very much so. Joseph Loke had a difficult weekend by his own standards. I think first couple of rounds of the season he was the driver to beat. Didn't quite have the pace he had at the previous rounds at Spa, and managed to salvage a decent result in race 3, but he's still right there at the top of the championship for now. Alex Dunn, of course, the pace he had at Spa was ridiculous, and if he carries up that pace, it's going to be hard to beat for the rest of the year. But my pick from the start of the season, Callum Boyson, is right there, just 2 points behind the championship leader, and I'm looking forward to a real championship fight sort of building as the season progresses.
Yeah, well, we're going to hear from Joseph Loke a little bit later in this pre-show before round 10. But first of all, we've talked about it enough. Let's remind ourselves of what happened last time in Belgium at Spa.
Highlights from round 7 of the GB3 Championship, partnered by the BRDC, takes our yearly trip to the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps with Callum Boyson starting from pole position. Unfortunately, Sean Rashid had an issue on the race start as he would drop to the rear of the field. Speaking of that, Mackenzie Cresswell would go for a bit of a spin through the likes of Loke, as well as an instant here for Styko, and then for a whole contingent towards the back end of the top 15. All coming to a stop, and then the safety car was called out. Mavlyatov involved, as well as Noah Ping. Once the cars got moved out of the way, the race was neutralised and Callum Boyson was still leading. However, he had pressure behind from Alex Dunn. The race would get underway, and Dunn not getting quite the fastest restart. He'd be right onto the rear wing though with the number 35 Carlin car that Callum Boyson was driving and was attacking for the race lead. There was one attempt into Lecom, and this time it wouldn't work. Boyson able to hold off the charge. The second attempt, and once again Alex Dunn switching up tactics, trying to get to the outside, and it still would not work. Meanwhile, his teammate having to defend from Max Esterson, and Michael Shin was just about able to do so. Kuharczyk was also keeping them quite close company for the podium, and then one final time, 3rd time was the charm for Alex Dunn, who'd get around the outside of Callum Boyson, would take over the race lead and would start running away in his high-tech pulsate machine. He would cross the line to take victory in the first race as far ahead of Callum Boyson and Kuharczyk. It was a tight race across the line, but Dunn was looking dominant and was looking fast, and by the time the second race got underway, it was Mackenzie Cresswell leading on the race and the charge up Eau Rouge and Radion. Down towards the likes of Lecom, he'd lost over the race lead. It was Callum Boyson once again going back to the front before a couple of squeezes on that Kemmel straight, was pushing a few off into the grass. A few tight ducks and dives going through the final chicane with Kuharczyk working his way forward before squeezing off Michael Shin on the Kemmel straight, pushing him out onto the grass on the left-hand side of shot as he was trying to work his way forward. Kuharczyk was just about doing it one position at a time and picking up from the odd mistakes here and there. Matthew Rees would go around the outside of Chris Dudulu going through the final chicane before there was issues for one of the Fortec cars and a couple of others running down the hill. There was this as well, running out wide. Joseph Loke struggling with some of the grip at the top of the hill. It wasn't the only time he'd be struggling through the second race of the weekend. A couple of drivers finding the gravel traps on the exit of varying corners, struggling to master the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. Once again, Alex Dunn was going for the race lead. It was another move around the outside of Lecom, and another time these two, being Dunn and Boyson, were battling for the race lead. Another mistake for Joseph Loke would see the championship leader dropping back into the clutches of Chris Dudulu as he was dropping back down the order. Same with John Bennett as well, having a couple of issues of his own. Gerard Shea was having one of the absolute best races of his season so far as he was working his way inside the top 5. Meanwhile, Chris Dudulu was still trying to defend from Joseph Loke. The couple of mistakes would see drivers running wide and then picking up warnings for track limit excursions, which would give a couple of post-race penalties. However, Alex Dunn not being one to fend with those in the race lead, and once again charging away from Callum Voisin. Nico Christodoulou just about hanging on to his position, as was John Bennett trying to fend off Jared Waberski just about towards the back end of the top 10. Alex Dunn was once again dominant though, and his high-tech Pulsate car would cross the line to take victory in the second race of the weekend, once again ahead of Callum Voisin. This time it was Mackenzie Cresswell joining them on the podium. By the time we got to the third race of the weekend, it was all about that reverse grid, and Mavliatov starting from the front row would take over the race lead into the first corner. Iwasaki dropping backwards as they would head their way down through that first corner at La Source. Up towards Les Cons once again, and there was 3 and 4 wides, plenty of drivers being pushed out wide, including that from Mackenzie Cresswell. And there was also issues from the likes of Mavliatov and from various drivers inside that sort of top 5 grouping, and Mavliatov being dropped backwards. There was also this Matthew Rees getting into the rear end of Sean Rashid coming down the hill. A nasty crash, and very unfortunate indeed. Of course, the race being stopped there for a second as we would get back underway. Joseph Loke battling it now with Ollie Stewart for the race lead, and Jared Waberski very close in tow. Stewart taking over the race lead, and that number 17 Elite Motorsports car was at the front of the field. Loke, the championship leader coming into this round, was desperate to try and hang on to that, leaving the circuit de Spa-Francorchamps. A couple of bits of contact as well. Michael Shin making contact with Arthur Rojon as they would leave the chicane, and would obviously give Shin a rear left puncture, sending him down the escape road at the exit of T1. Unfortunately for Max Esterson, he was sent round by Noah Ping going into the final complex of corners, and it was Ollie Stewart coming out of the final corner to take victory ahead of Joseph Loke and Jared Waberski. A fantastic drive from the runner-up in GB4. And so a look at the championship standings then after that weekend away at Spa. Joseph Loke just about hangs on to his championship lead, but it is now just by 2 points after Callum Voisin picking up the double podium and a third race top 10 as well. Alex Dunn worked his way up the order after his double victory, up to third in the championship, closing in on the championship lead with Kahacek's great pace keeping him in fourth position. Then we go through Headley, Cresswell, Bennett, Rees, Waberski of course with that podium in the third race, and then Costa de Paris rounding out the top 10 with 91 points. Behind that, Nico Christodoulou has 76, just ahead of Max Esterson in his second year in GB3. Morales, Gerard Shea having an absolutely fantastic round at Spa, same with Shin. Iwasaki, Ping, Pearson and Stewart as well with that race victory, and Lucas Staiko rounds out the top 20. Then we have Daniel Mavliatov, Suter Arau having a few struggles in his 2023 season of GB3 Championship, partnered by the BRDC in 22nd. Then Arthur Rojon and Zach Taylor rounding out the 24 drivers.
Yeah, so a great weekend in Belgium for this guy, Alex Dunn. You can see his silver high-tech car here, looking great ahead of this race coming up. He's qualified 4th on the grid for this first race here at Snetterton this weekend, round 10 of the GB3 Championship. JHR Developments are on pole with Matthew Rees. A great hot lap for him. Second, Callum Voisin continuing his excellent form so far this season, starting P2. And Timet Kahacek, the Polish driver driving with Douglas Motorsport, will start 3rd on the grid. I caught up with him a little while ago. We'll hear from him in just a second after Piers Pryor talks you through a hot lap here in a GB3 car at Snetterton.
Let's ride on board a lap of the Snetterton 300 circuit with our pole sitter for race 1, Matthew Rees. A long run down to turn 1, which is Rich is almost flat out through turn 1. Nicked the first apex, missed the second. The speed through here is incredible this year with these new cars. And then we brake hard down into the Wilson hairpin. Some differing lines from different drivers here. Some go out wide and cut back, some go in early. Rees decided to go early this time. Then turn 3 of Palmer's. It's a high apex speed corner here, banked and raised on the exit, but watch out for track limits as there is a sensor there. Slight kink down towards Agostini, the second overtaking opportunity on the lap. Again, a long apex hairpin, so missed the first part, grabbed the second. Traction is important on the way out. Now next we have Hamilton as a medium speed corner, very narrow, very tricky to get right, a little bit of movement through the apex, watch the track limits on the exit, and then the bumpy braking of Oggies, which goes on and on and on, bumpy on the exit as well, so traction is tricky. Now potentially the most important corner on the circuit, Williams, which heads out onto the long Bentley straight, over half a mile of flat out running now to pick out your braking point for Brundle and Nelson under the bridge. We're completely flat out over 140 miles an hour, braking very, very late, get into the apex early for Brundle to open up the entry of Nelson. Again, traction is important on the exit. Car gets out our way on the inside as we go flat out down the undulation, down and up through the...
So Timek, you come into the championship this weekend fourth, which is a great 67 points at Spa last time out, and you were fastest in the final testing session ahead of the race weekend. So everything seems to be going in your favour so far this weekend.
Yeah, I think so. The pace is great. We've been fast so far. I think we found a good setup. Also, I feel very confident in the car, and I think which is great. We'll try to keep on the momentum for tomorrow.
Obviously, Spa, as I just mentioned there, was good for you. I mean, it was a few weekends ago, and now, I mean, what have you been doing since that last race weekend ahead of this one?
I've been having some rest. I went on Polish mountains for a bit of climbing. I've done also event where I've drove Formula 1 two-seater. Wow. So I took for a ride few persons, and I think it was fun, cool experience. And yeah, I've been preparing for this weekend as well, going gym, do some sim sessions as well before this weekend. And yeah, I think we've been very competitive so far this year, and we just prove it again.
When we see drivers talking about the sim sessions, when you actually get out on the track, especially if it's maybe a track you've not been to before, is it literally exactly the same, or are there slight things that are different, maybe different cambers in the road that aren't quite reflected in the sim?
But yeah, comparing to sim, it's obviously a bit different. You cannot really check the setup, and the cars are a bit different as well on the sim which we usually use. But I think it's cool experience for getting the track learned and for getting it to know. Most of the important corners, bumps are there, so because the best sims are scanned. So when you do a bit of sim before the race weekend, before the new track you learn, I think it's a good experience, good to know it, and then I think it, for example, for me, it gave quite a lot.
Now, you're one of our international drivers that has a lot of people watching back home, and we see on the live stream a lot of support back home in Poland. So that must be really nice to know that, while you're away racing in a different country, you've got basically the whole country behind you.
Yeah, it's cool. I'm really grateful for the support I have. The fans are great. I see all the comments on my posts and also on the YouTube channels, and it's great. I'm just so grateful for them, and hopefully we'll see some more, even maybe this weekend. A few people come, would be nice.
I'm sure you will. Finally, have you been teaching anyone at Douglas any Polish?
Yeah, I think so. At least how to say hi.
Cześć?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I think that's most British. All British people know, really.
Yeah, because there are a lot of Polishes here. So yeah, I think there is like around 1 million or even more Polish here. So I think it's great. And yeah, the language is hard, but it's good to know it a bit.
Of course it is. Well, look, you were fastest in that final testing session ahead of this weekend. So best of luck this weekend, Timek.
Thank you very much.
The Snetterton circuit in Norfolk has been a test for all drivers in Great Britain over the last 70 or so years. Opened in 1951, first raced in 1953. It's gone through variations over that time, including the current layout that we have, the Snetterton 300, which was opened in 2011, making that inner section where you've got the likes of Agostini and Hamilton and Oggies. It's a very difficult circuit, one that certainly from an elevation standpoint doesn't look too testing, but from a race circuit standpoint certainly is so. 2.9 miles around, just a shy under 3 miles, and you can see very little elevation, but that means nothing on this circuit. It is tricky, it is testing, it has some brutal corners, the likes of Agostini, the likes of Brundle into Nelson, Coram into Murray's. That final section is what creates this circuit to be such a test and such a great overtaking circuit.
Right, well, I'm now here with Joseph Loke, who's already told me he's not very happy with how it went last time out at Spa. What was the big problem? I mean, you got some points.
Yeah, obviously the pace just wasn't there. We weren't at the front. We had an issue in qualifying, which didn't help. Obviously, teammates were P5 and 6, and I was down in 14th. So it was always going to be very tricky to do anything that weekend. But obviously, managed to pick up a P10, P9. I think it was the other way around, but it doesn't matter. Luckily, the reverse grid race, we managed to salvage some points, which it did help, and therefore we are still leading the championship, but it's very, very close, and the pace isn't looking amazing this weekend, so I think it's going to be a bit of damage limitation this weekend, but yeah, we'll see. We'll try and get everything we can.
I know this isn't your favourite track at all. Why is that?
I'm not sure, to be quite honest. I always feel like I do pretty decent laps around here, but it just doesn't really come together. I struggle to put a lap together. When I put one together, I think it is quite quick. Just unfortunately, I struggle to just put every corner together around here. Just the nature of the circuit, just something doesn't suit me. And it's one of that. I think every driver has a circuit that they struggle on, and this just happens to be this one. So, like I say, we'll do a bit of damage limitation. I don't think we're that far off. But we won't be challenging for wins, I don't think, unless we get a bit of luck on our side, or the race pace is a lot better than quali. So we'll see. I'll give it my best, and hopefully we'll get some good points.
Coming away from Spa, you come into this weekend with a 2-point lead over Callum Voisin, with also Alex Dunn, who had a great weekend at Spa, just behind him in third. So, are they who you see as your title contenders, or is there maybe another driver or two that are a little bit further back that you think could, really find their feet in the second half of the season?
Obviously, aside from Voisin and Dunn, obviously Timek is quite quick. I can't even pronounce his last name, not even going to bother trying. But yeah, Timek's been really quick. He's been consistently there. Obviously, he put it on pole at Silverstone and then got disqualified for something that he probably shouldn't have, in my opinion. But yeah, he's been very quick the whole year, and I don't think he's that far behind. So if he has a weekend like Dunn did at Spa, he'll be right in the mix, and I wouldn't count him out. The same with Matt Rees as well. He's my teammate. He's been quicker than me this weekend so far, and he is quick. Like there's been a lot of weekends where he's been faster than me, but he's just not had the luck that I've maybe got, especially at Silverstone anyway. He's been getting very unlucky, especially Spa, reverse grid race, nothing he can do, things like that. So I can see Matt being up there towards the end, but he's got quite a lot of points to catch up now. So, it's going to be hard for him to do that, but he's good. He's a good driver, so I wouldn't put it past him.
Well, look, it's a really nice weekend here. Is this the kind of weather you like racing in, or do you perhaps like it a little bit cooler? What's the vibe?
No, I hate it. I hate the heat. I'm so bad with it. The moment it gets hot, just everything, driving, the car just feels soft and like flimsy almost, and whereas in the cold it just feels nice and underneath you, and you just don't get as nice of a feeling through it. And I think that's maybe where I struggle a little bit more as well, because I like having the car quite hunkered down beneath me, and then I can get on top of the car instead of the car kind of dictating what happens. So maybe that's something that I need to try and get on top of myself. I'm doing the best I can to try and do that, and I have made steps forward this weekend. But yeah, just the heat always gets to me.
Great to hear from Joseph Loke there. He's going to be hoping for a good result, starting from 5th place in his first race of the weekend.
Yeah, he mentioned there that he hates the heat. I mean, the conditions have changed massively in the last half an hour or so. Very, very cool now here at Snetterton. We've just had a little rain shower, and I was just talking before, during that chat with Joseph Loke there, and we were looking where the drivers were putting wets on, and as a driver yourself, you were saying absolutely not, there's no chance. And actually the rain has now stopped, so that was a good decision. Would you have been tempted at all, or does it need to be a much more consistent and heavier rain?
Yeah, it was definitely for a moment, should we, shouldn't we, because it was falling quite hard, but no, slicks is definitely the right option. The track has still got a lot of heat in it, but we're literally about to go, and it looks like they're saying 2 green flag laps for all the drivers.
Yeah, and why would that be very, very quickly, Piers?
2 green flag laps is to give the drivers an extra lap to get any temperature in the tyres and brakes, and allow the drivers to understand the conditions, because it might have been raining heavier at a different part of the circuit than it is here on the dummy grid.
Okay, well, we'll let you go and run to commentary. I'll take this off you here. We can just see the cars going out behind me there. The Red Bull branded car of Suter Aral there driving out. Mackenzie Creswell as well. Very, very quick here in testing at Snetterton across the weekend. Starting down in P11 as the cars towards the back come out here. And as you can see behind, all of the mechanics will rush off. They take all of the tyres off to the pit lane to make sure that they're all in position. Lewis McGlade will be in position to commentate. Piers Pryor will join him in a second. Let's go racing for the first time this weekend here in the GB3 Championship at Snetterton.
Well, to Norfolk and to the tricky and testing Snetterton circuit. It is a brutal one. It is a tough one, especially when just before the race we've had a little bit of a sprinkle. Rain has come down just a touch, definitely not enough for any wet weather tyres. But it just means it's going to be a little bit greasy. It's going to be a little bit more tricky going into turn one. It's also quite warm. It's quite thick out there. The cars are dancing around a little bit more. It is going to be a true test as we get ready to end the first half of the season. Once we're done with this weekend, we'll have completed 12 rounds of the GB3 Championship partnered by the BRDC, meaning there's just 12 more. And the hunt for the 2023 title is well and truly on. Just 2 points separating the top 2 drivers. Of course, Joseph Loke hanging on to the championship lead after that fantastic drive to second at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps a few weeks ago. Callum Voisin, though, right on his tail. They're setting off onto the formation lap. They will do 2 formation laps, courtesy of the weather, courtesy of the sprinkle that we've had coming down. They'll go round for 2 laps just to make sure they can get all the heat, all of the comfort, understand where the circuit is and exactly what is going on the racetrack. It is going to be a difficult race if ever I've seen it. Of course, in the commentary booth, it's myself, Lewis McGlade, it's Piers Pryor alongside. And yeah, it's going to be difficult out there, Piers. You know, it was a light sprinkle, but it's enough to make it greasy, yeah?
Yeah, definitely enough to make it greasy, as we've seen cars locking up going into the Wilson hairpin, even on this formation lap, Lewis. But yeah, it was definitely a sizable sprinkle, but it's dried out now, I think, at least at the last corner. Yeah,
certainly. So we can get an understanding of the race. I'm just trying to test Piers' fitness there. He's had a little bit of a run over back to the commentary booth. But no, all is well and good. Like we've said, though, things are looking fantastic for the likes of Callum Voisin, who's charging up to the front of the field. He's qualified in the front row again. He's looking really, really strong. He came off a double pole position back in Spa, but didn't take a race victory in either.
No, he didn't, but again, he's still right there in the championship, still 2 points behind our championship leader, Joseph Loke, who's in 5th place starting this race. But we've mentioned before, we're going to say it again, all he needs to do is put this consistent results in, and we know how fast he can be this weekend, because in qualifying, even though he was second on the road, I think his sectors were put together with the fastest. So if he puts the consistent sectors together in this one, he can definitely put a lot of pressure on our pole sister Matthew Rees.
Especially when Joseph Loke's qualified a little further down the order. I think he's 7th in this first race of the weekend, and so I do believe there might be a couple of struggles. When you are the champion leader, you're coming into every round with that pressure on your shoulders, with that kind of extra weight, that expectation that you're going to be at the front. And for someone who's young and inexperienced like Joseph Loke, sometimes that can be a bit unfair. If you look back at the first couple of rounds of the championship, he was going into it as if like, yeah, whatever, and what? I'll come along, I'll do what I want. And it worked for him.
It did, but I think that a lot of these drivers, they're so early in their career and all they've ever known is sort of racing at the front of grids. It's just normal to them. And I don't feel like Joseph Loke is showing any pressure, really, is he? And you consider the fact that, he was fast at the first round, came away from the first round as championship leader, then continued that excellent pace and great driving at Silverstone. A bit of a tricky weekend at Spa, but, it might not have all been down to him.
Well, we'll take a look at the starting grid, of course, for round number 10 of the GB3 Championship, partnered by the BRDC. Matthew Rees on pole position. Either way, we'll take a look at the starting grid. It was Matthew Rees on pole position. It was Callum Voisin alongside on that front row of the grid. Timek Kuharczyk will be starting from 3rd position with Alex Dunn in 4th. Noah Ping, by the way, amazing qualifying for him to have been up there in 5th position, although I am being told by Piers that is not correct. He's searching through other stuff now. We're all getting panicked in the commentary. What we do know is Matthew Rees and Callum Voisin are looking exceptionally fast on that front row of the grid. It's going to be a tall order to beat someone like Matthew Rees, who's going to be so determined.
Yeah, exactly, because they're so close at the front of the field as well. The pace in the race is so tight between it's basically who's going to be getting the best start, really. We're just struggling a little bit here because
I think that is the good. Oh, it's because of penalties.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yes.
There have been a few penalties, of course, because Noah Ping actually was he's got a three place,
yeah.
3 place grid penalty, and then who are the other two? We've got Sean Rashid has got a 6th place penalty.
Yeah, and also Timek Kuharczyk has a 3 place penalty as well.
There we go. That's why Kuharczyk's not going to be starting from 3rd. He's going to be starting from 6th.
Yes.
Depending on how those penalty gets added. Yeah, I think it is 6th.
Yes, it should be 6th place. Yes.
It's easy to confuse 2 idiots in the commentary. That's absolutely fine. Who would be your pick for a victory in this? Matthew Rees is hungry. Callum Voisin, both on the front row are extremely hungry.
Very much so. I mean, Matthew Rees has had a very tricky start to the season, especially considering how strong he was at the back end of last year. You know, he's going to be wanting to kickstart his championship campaign, and we know he's got the pace. If you can put the weekends together, he's had a bit of bad luck as well, getting caught up in an incident at Spa as well, which wasn't really his fault as well. So I think whoever gets to turn 1 first is probably going to take the win, because it's difficult to pass around this Snetterton 300 circuit. Quite high minimum speed. There's only a couple of overtaking opportunities, but they're off the back of faster corners, and it's quite a narrow circuit as well. But it doesn't mean to say we won't see any overtaking, because you've got the big toe down this straight here, the start-finish straight in towards Richards at turn 1, if you can get alongside there. Then, of course, Wilson straight after that, and then Agostini, and then you can also do a dive either inside or outside into Brundle under the bridge on the sort of the last sector of the lap. That last sector, so through the bomb hole, Coram and Murray's, is pretty much single file. But those are the 3 main overtaking opportunities.
I mean, committing to a move outside of Brundle is always a big brave one. That's right at the end of the backstretch. You're so high commitment, so high load, and you're on the brakes trying to wrestle it through the corner. It is immensely difficult. That is the beautiful thing about this Snetterton circuit, though, is it is full of challenging corners that will test all of our drivers over 12 laps as we get ready for round 10 of the 2023 GB3 Championship, partnered by the BRDC. The front row, Matthew Rees on the left-hand side in the number 5. The 35 of Callum Voisin, second in the championship, will start alongside on the right-hand side as we prepare to go racing down towards the first corner. As the lights are on, we are underway at the first race of the weekend. It's a decent start from Matthew Rees, but look at this from Alex Dunn, who's got alongside on the inside. That's a brilliant start, though, from the number 4. I think that is Krista Dulu, is it not? No, it's Noah. It's James Headley, of course, who's had a fantastic start.
James Headley's jumped to the front of the field from the 3rd row, I believe. That's a great start. Joseph Loke now fighting for the lead. Voisin down to 3rd place. Matthew Rees has gone backwards after not the strongest of starts.
Yeah, I mean, we do know the Arden BRD cars are looking really strong this weekend. Joseph Loke trying to defend from Kuharczyk. Front wing has just been flown off. Who was that? That was off one of the Arden BRDs. That is Nico Christodoulou.
Oh, Christodoulou just catching the back of, I think that was the Douglas car number 7 of Kuharczyk as they went into Palmer's. Now Kuharczyk is looking around the outside of Loke. Both JHR cars struggling off the line there.
Yeah, it is quite difficult to translate on that race start without giving too much wheel spin, without it bogging down too much. There's a bit of side-by-side there. That was Costa Taparis setting up one of the Elite Motorsports cars. You've got John Bennett as well getting involved in the mix as they're heading their way through the right-hander, go through Oggies up towards the backstretch. When they go through and out onto that backstretch, you said there is track limits kind of pertinent on this corner here. Going through Williams out onto that backstretch, you can get pinged for track limits.
You can, yeah. There are sensors around the circuit, but James Headley with the perfect start from, I can't remember if it was the 2nd or 3rd row of the grid, went right round the outside of everyone and jumped 2 rows up pretty much. We also saw some fighting through Williams between Woberski and Oliver Stewart. Oliver Stewart is showing good pace this weekend after, of course, a strong race win in the 3rd round, or 3rd race at Spa-Francorchamps.
Yeah, there we go, through Coram. You can see all the differing lines. You've got Gerard Shea going out a little bit wider, hooking in for a slightly later apex. First lap complete then, and you're absolutely right. Fantastic first lap from the VRD driver of James Headley across the line and in the lead, pulling away now from Matthew Rees. I think that might be short-lived. I think Matthew Rees might start closing back in, but like you say, getting up to someone and passing them. They're 2 wildly different things around here. Look at these 2. Alex Dunn in that number 22 high-tech Pulse 8 car, just ahead of the JHR Developments number 84 of Joseph Loke. That is your championship leader, still in 5th position, battling with someone who's had a real change in form and who's really starting to apply the pressure with that double win at Spa.
Yeah, that high-tech Pulse 8 car that we're looking at right now, the number 22 22 in the grey, black and red flashes is definitely coming onto form. And as we get to the middle of the season, we know he's got a great pedigree in previous championships before this series, but he's really shown some pace, especially that high-tech Pulse A car, always been strong around Spa, but he's now right in there with the championship front runners at pretty much every race. And although saying that, Callum Voisin is still right there in third place, and if it stays as it is, he will take the championship lead after this race.
Certainly, so it is all boiling down to it getting very, very close. We said about Callum Voisin's consistency. Amazingly, Voisin is yet to take a victory in the 2023 season, which is just baffling to me. He's been on the podium 5 times, is looking to try and take that victory. I think around here in third position, I know there's plenty of time left in the race, but it is a difficult circuit to pass. I think he needs something between Headley and Rees to happen before he can have an opportunity. You can see he's kind of dropping off the rear end a little bit. Now, I'm going to take a wild shout here. Do you think anyone's playing a slight tyre management game around here? I know this is slightly higher on load, courtesy of corners like Brundle Nelson, like Riches, like Coram as well. You're leaning on that front left through Coram so hard through. Do you think there's anyone doing that to make sure that they've got tyres ready for tomorrow?
The front left takes an absolute caning around this circuit. Oh! That is Costa de Paris in the Rodin Carlin car going off very wide, almost into the field on the exit of turn 1. Didn't see whether there was any contact or whether there was anyone else involved, but he's pretty much gone to the back of the field and his tyres will be completely covered in rubbish now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd kind of say, generally speaking, it probably would be contact. You don't see too many cars going backward through Riches like that. But yeah, alas, they might have got something slightly wrong on there.
He went off quite early in the corner, so that would suggest to me that either he dropped a wheel on the the grass on the entry, or there was someone else who got involved. But you can see how hard the cars are hustling around this Snetterton 300 circuit. The few bumps in the infield really making the cars skate and dance around.
Do you like the circuit?
Oh, it really suits these cars actually on a hot lap. It's quite technical in the middle sector, but you've also got some sections like we're coming down now to Brundle and Nelson where you're braking from high speed, and these GB3 cars really do come alive over sort of 120, 130 miles an hour like they do through Coram and Riches and Hamilton. But you can see now Matthew Rees in that number 5 grey and orange flashes JHR Developments car putting the pressure on our race leader James Headley.
Yeah, he is right over the rear end. So is Dunn as well in that number 22, closing in on the driver that's currently second in the championship, Callum Voisin. Things could be getting much, much closer. A lot of slips and slides. That could be a little bit wide there from James Headley as we head onto the start-finish straight, onto the centre straight. It's just over half a mile long. This could be a switch for the race lead as Matthew Rees in that number 5 JHR Developments car is closing in. He's going to look to the outside going into Riches. He's going to try and send it in. He's going to not really fully commit to it, but it might be the up and under before they get down towards the hairpin. Headley instantly defends it as they go down onto the brakes. The number 5 not able to do so, but look at Alex Dunn sending one in the background as well as he sends it in down the inside of Callum Voisin, unable to do so when the 4 of them stay in their same positions. Yeah, that was a good opportunistic move there from Dunn, just trying to take advantage of the cars backing up in front of him, but he wasn't quite far enough alongside to force his way past Callum Voisin, who just gave him just enough room on the apex to not make contact. But Dunn looking again up the inside of Agostini, not getting it done this time. But I was about to mention, a big slide out of Agostini from Callum Voisin, clearly trying to push on away from Alex Dunn. But we just saw a little movement, a little bit of a wobble from James Headley through Coram into Murray's, which then sort of hampered his exit out of Murray's. Then he was under pressure through down the start-finish straight, then through Riches and had to defend. And it's one of those things where a small mistake just gets amplified and amplified and amplified because all the corners lead onto each other. Yeah, there's so many examples of that. Like you say, going through Brundle Nelson, you can be open up, going through Bombhole and then up towards Coram. If you make a mistake going into Murray's, then again, you're going to be wide open going down the start-finish straight. If you make a mistake going through Williams as well, you're going to be wide open going into that Brundle Nelson complex. Yeah, again, a little wobble through the middle of Nelson there from James Headley. He's clearly struggling with that car a little more than Matthew Rees is. That wide entry into Coram is more of a preference thing. A lot of drivers try and keep it tight because they can sort of cut a bit of extra time off. But if you go wider on the way in, it makes the braking a little bit easier. So it's a bit more consistent to go wider. Not quite as close this time, but these front two are definitely pulling away a little bit from Voisin and Dunn. Yeah, the lap times on the previous lap, of course, you see Alex Dunn has the fastest lap of the race. That has just moved to Noah Ping. He is having a fantastic pace this weekend. He's shown it in qualifying. Yes, I know he's had a 3-place grid drop, but he is not showing any signs of that stopping him. 3.3 seconds off of the race lead. He is the car right at the back of the train there, that number 3 Arden VRD car. Arden VRD genuinely have been looking very, very fast this weekend. Obviously, a big shame for Nico Christodoulou in the opening stage of this race, having that front wing being taken off. But I think for Ardent BRD right now, they're showing why they're a big team, why they're so strong. I remember last year they went really well at Spa and kind of carried that form for the next few rounds. Almost seems as though that's pretty much the case of what's happening now.
Yeah, almost exactly the same thing. They maybe weren't as quite up to speed as they wanted to be at the start of the season for the first couple of rounds, but at Spa all three drivers were right there, and then again here at Snetterton. Noah Ping actually moving on a long way, because at the start of the season he was struggling a little bit, but you know, in qualifying he was the fastest of the three drivers, I believe. Unfortunately didn't get to take his qualifying position following on from that 3-place penalty he got from the race 3 at Spa.
Well, just to clarify, by the way, when we're saying about Noah Ping, that was a little wide there from James Headley, again starting to fear that he might be under a lot of pressure. With Noah Ping, his qualifying at the start of the season, he qualified 22nd and 21st back in Alton Park, then started to move forward 14th and 11th going into the silvers. And so then to have the fact that he qualified inside the top 5, yes, I know he had that 3-place grid job, but the fact that he qualified in 5th place, as that is a little wide. Speaking of Noah Ping, that's not the commentator's curse, that is just bad driving. That is
the commentator's curse there. We're singing his praises.
Exist.
But that battle for the front is still going on. James Headley using all of the road into riches. It's so fast through there, such a rewarding corner, but the margins are so fine, as Costa Taparis found out earlier on. But you know, in so many series you've seen cars go a bit too hard into riches, drop a wheel on the exit and spear themselves into the inside barrier, as we saw Callum Voisin do in race 2 or 3 last year, I believe.
I think it was... Oh, I think it might have been 1, because I get the feeling they had to repair... Oh, it might have been 2. No, I think it was 1. I think because they had the overnight repair for it, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he's got to make sure he won't do that one again. Although I get the feeling that the Callum Voisin we're dealing with in 2023 is very, very different to the Callum Voisin we were dealing with in 2022. It seemed as though in 2022 at points it was a win it or bin it mentality, whereas now the only winning or binning that he's focused on is the title. And he has shown that so many times, despite some of the struggles that he's had through the season, so despite having some of those rounds where he's not exactly had the pace that he would have expected, he has moved his way forward and shown why he is a quality contender. Also, speaking of that, by the way, Joseph Loke, who's in 5th position, obviously the championship leader, who'll be relinquishing that at this very moment if things continue on as they stand. He came into this, and in the pre-race interviews that we were having, he was saying, basically, I don't think I've got the pace to compete around here, that he didn't think that he had the pace to take wins. The fact that he's still fighting on strong is showing why he could be definitely that strong potential that we expect now from Joseph Loke.
Yeah, Joseph Loke, we know how much pace he's got, and he loves getting stuck in. We've seen him have some great races, but we're just looking a bit further down the field now. We're looking at that fight between Waberski and Taylor, but actually I think he's actually moved a bit further forward. I think he might have got ahead of Taylor. We've got Shin ahead of this. So maybe, I'm not sure, there must have been a shuffle earlier on this lap, but I was just looking at Waberski, who's definitely one of the biggest movers in this race, qualifying down almost outside the top 20, I think. Waberski qualified in 20th and is now all the way up, looking to take a place into, I think that's 11th place here, or 12th place he's trying to take with Stewart, going side by side through riches. That's a good piece of driving from both of them to get through there cleanly. Yeah, look at this, David Morales as well off the rear end. David Morales locks up a little bit. He's going to be into the rear wing almost of Jared Waberski. Ollie Stewart's gone around the outside. That race win has completely changed. Number 17 Elite Motorsports car is to the inside as we head through Palmer. That is a fantastic move once again. They still remain side by side. This is excellent racing between these two, Ollie Stewart and Jared Waberski, and now David Morales taking a bit of a look down the inside, a bit of a lock up there from the number 17, and that will be the position held for Stewart. That will be 13th position in all of this, as once again Morales looks to the inside going into Hamilton. All over the rear end he's going. Arthur Roujon as well, Gerard Shea, and there's a bit of a look as well from the charging Edward Pearson. Yeah, Pearson's trying to get involved in some of this as well, but yeah, Waberski's definitely come through, up 7 places since the start, so he's had a good first race. And I actually chatted to him very briefly before the race earlier on. He did say his goal for this weekend, after struggling with the car in testing and qualifying, was just to have some good starts and have some good racing and see where he ends up, and then hopefully push on the next round, because they feel like they're struggling with something on the car that they can't really deal with right now. But he's still having a good showing. That pace is still clearly somewhere in that car, and this is a great battle actually, sort of 10th downwards or 11th downwards. It's pretty much nose to tail.
Yeah, it really is. Again, fantastic. This is exactly what we expect from the GB3 Championship, partnered by the BRDC. Not too long left to go in this race as we cross the line to start another one. 7 laps down, so there'll be roughly 5 laps left to go. It is getting tough in this mid-pack. Of course, the number 42 here, Max Esterson, struggling qualifying, had some issues. Was the only driver not to get a lap time onto the board, so he'll be starting from the back of the field in all 3 of the races this weekend. He has got a long weekend ahead of him. One of the drivers that we were actually expecting to fight for the championship in 2023. And he is not in the position he would want. Behind Iata Iwasaki, obviously he is running in 20th position at the moment, trying to get into 19th, getting past that number 15.
Yeah, it's been a really, really tough start for Max Esterson at the start of the season. You know, last year racing for the Douglas Motorsport team, showing some great pace, and then this year just not gone his way. I think most of it's just been bad luck, really. He's had a couple of issues with the car, you know, either component failures or whatever, and then had a couple of issues not being in the right place at the right time in quali, and a big wobble. Whoa, Max Esterson. No, that was Pearson, actually. Pearson had a big wobble through Hamilton and then nearly lost it on the exit there, but managed to gather that up. But we look back to the fight at the front of the field. I
think Pearson might have been the driver that I was kind of oohing about, where I think he might have run wide on the exit of Agostini, got some dirty tyres going into Hamilton, and it just bit. Potentially, I did see a bit of dust being kicked up. It is very dusty around here. I know that little sprinkling of rain we just had would have helped keep that down just a touch, but it is still very, very dusty. It's very dry out here in Norfolk. It always is at Snetterton. There is not long left to go in this race then. We've got 4 laps left at the moment. Headley continues to lead from Rees. 1 second, those two are clear of Callum Voisin. Then Alex Dunn, Kuharczyk, Loke, Ping, Sudhir Rao, and then Cresswell, and then John Bennett getting himself inside the top 10 in his road in Carlin.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier on about potentially some of the drivers playing a bit of a long game with tyre saving. I wonder if Callum Voisin is actually deliberately just giving himself a bit of breathing room off the back of these front two, because I think he knows that it's hard to pass around here, and if either of them make a mistake, he can gain the position, but he's not that worried. He's ahead of all of his main championship rivals as it stands, and the further he can give himself, the more air he can get on the front wing, the less effort goes through that front left tyre, which potentially means he'll be stronger tomorrow. And as long as he can hold off Alex Dunn, which is fairly easy if he doesn't make a mistake, then it might be a good championship sort of drive this as well, because we know that ultimately it's how you do over the whole race weekend, not just in one race.
Again, it's that whole making the most of your worst days.
Yes.
We've said that before with Callum Voisin an awful lot this year. He's not looked like the absolute fastest driver really at any point this year. Yes, of course, he had the double pole at Spa, but he's not looked... I've never been convinced that Callum Voisin is the fastest driver on the grid, but what we are seeing is that he is almost certainly one of, if not the best racer on the grid. He has that mindset, he has that mentality, and that pace, I promise you, after watching last year with Callum Voisin, if you are a Callum Voisin fan, that pace will almost certainly click, and when it does, the rest of this paddock will be in quite a lot of trouble when it comes to that road in Carlin, because he'll be a tough cookie to beat.
You say that he hasn't looked like the fastest. I'd say in qualifying he probably had the fastest. You know, he was driving really well, and he just didn't quite put his sectors together. I think, if I'm right in saying, I might be remembering wrong, but I think his sectors together were the fastest, but he was second fastest overall. But also, let's just have a look back at the front of the field again. James Headley, what a race for him. We heard at the start of the season, of course, at Alton Park, at that point he was only doing 1 round to see if he can get going, and managed to win the race in the wet, and here he is a few races later leading the race in race 1, not even a reverse grid, and it's just, you know, it's great to see someone who's, you know, struggled so hard to get on the grid having another good race, and he's held off a lot of pressure from Rees so far. Again, still 1.5 laps remaining, so I hope I don't curse him myself, but it's great to see that, and also good to see Rees back up the front where we're used to seeing him as well.
Yeah, I mean, Headley was properly in championship contention like after that first round. Kind of dropped off a little bit at Silverstone, but like we say, we love seeing a bit of Headley going strong right now. The fact that he's leading is great. Also the fact that there is potential rain tomorrow lingering on the horizon. I think that will very much whet James Headley's appetite. Of course, over the previous lap, by the way, they say Matthew Rees has just set the fastest lap of the race in catching of James Headley. We are about to head on to the penultimate lap of the race. There is not long left to go right now. Headley's doing everything he can to try and hang on from Matthew Rees in that JHR Developments car. And like you say, there is that differing line going through Coram. Why would you take different lines? Is it just on speed, or is there a little bit of tyre saving in there as well?
I don't think it's really to do with tyre saving. If you're right behind someone through corner, which is a very, very long, flat-out corner, you can often get a bit of aero wash if you're right underneath someone. So if you just, if they're going wide in front of you, you can go a bit tighter, or vice versa. It just gives you a bit more air on the front wing, so potentially reduces that load for the front tyre. But also, if you open it up and go a bit wide around Coram, as I mentioned earlier, you can just sort of straighten up the braking for Murray's a bit better, because you're having to turn and brake at the same time, and these single-seater cars don't really like doing that very well. It's quite hard to keep the car under control, so it's just reducing the chance of a mistake more than anything.
While these two have stopped slipping and sliding, watching them go through Palmer there, they're looking well in control at the moment. They've pulled out a decent gap, almost 2 seconds over Callum Voisin behind. They depart Agostini at the moment, and James Headley is in control at the moment. The question really is, does Matthew Rees have enough left in his car, in his mentality as well, to be able to fire something down the inside? I don't see him as being a driver right now that's content with finishing in second. I get the feeling that he's got at least one look, one opportunity, one feeling inside him over the next lap and a bit.
I feel like if James Headley keeps it tidy, then it's going to be very difficult for Rees to force a manoeuvre, because in the dirty air, it's quite hard to actually get close enough to affect a pass. However, I do think of these two drivers, Matthew Rees has looked the faster. He's been able to stay within about 2 or 3 tenths of a second a lap for the whole race, and I think if Rees had got away at the front of the field, he would have gapped the field. His car just looks that much more under control than Headley's. Headley's looks on the limit the whole time. You look at every corner, it looks like Rees can just turn tighter, exit narrower. It looks a little bit more under control. So if he gets away in a good start in race number 2, he could be running away with it, assuming that it is dry once again.
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow morning when we get underway for the 11th race of the season. Oh my goodness me, Headley was using an awful lot of road there, almost dipped 2 wheels into the grass, which is kind of where I think things went awry for Costa Paris earlier on in this race. We are on the final lap of this race. Headley continues to lead as we leave the Wilson hairpin, not quite Agostini yet. We've got to go through Palmer and then we're in Agostini. And at the moment, these two grey cars, they are not teammates, ladies and gentlemen. Headley, he's an outside chance to maybe go for the championship. Arden VRD are looking really, really strong this weekend. This is a weekend to capitalise, and at the moment, he's doing everything he can.
Look how close the lap times are between the front two as well. The best lap of the race is set by Matthew Rees a few laps ago, and it was a 1:41.490. James Headley at the front of the field at 1:41.492, only 2,000 separating them.
That's a massive chasm. What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's so close. And we saw that in qualifying. The gap between all the cars in the top 10 especially is so tight, and I think Matthew Rees has just dropped off ever so slightly on this last lap, potentially just thinking, I don't think I'm going to be able to get past now, and just saving a little bit in those tyres. Headley not completely content with the gap he's got there, just making sure that Rees knows that he's going to fight for it if he does have a go, but last sector of the lap, Matthew Rees not quite going to get through, I don't think.
No, Headley's been restless. I agree with everything you said earlier on, is that Matthew Rees looks planted, looks comfortable, looks kind of just a one with the car. Meanwhile, James Headley is erratic. The car's being pushed around, it's being fought, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If it's the fastest way around the track, then you're going to be the one that wins, and that is the case for James Headley for the second time in 2023. James Headley crosses a line to win the first race here at Snetterton, ahead of Matthew Rees by 0.3 of a second. Back to Callum Voisin, who looks to take over the championship lead. The fastest lap completed over the race was Alex Dunn on the final one. Kuharczyk and Loke in 5th and 6th. So painful points being lost there for our championship, or now ex-championship leader in Joseph Loke, who will relinquish it. Will it be for one race? Will it be to the end of the season? Who knows?
Who knows? I'm looking forward to this championship fight rearing on for the rest of the year, but what to say, James Headley, you could see how much it meant to him and the team as well. It's great to have those shots on the pit wall of how much it means to the guys.
Yeah, certainly so. As we'll see them all come round on their cool-down laps. We'll see our way into the podium as well. And once again, we've said before with James Headley, like we said, he's not got the biggest budget when it comes to drivers in this camp. There's always been question marks as to how many rounds he can do this season. They're playing it on a round-by-round basis, and James Headley leaves himself in a very strong position to keep going in the 2023 season. With that victory, once again, a very impressive drive. Just didn't really put a foot wrong in a car which looked difficult to drive. It shows the skill that James Headley has put on there. Matthew Rees, though, looked really, really strong. Callum Voisin, was he looking after his tyres a little bit? I don't know. I think you would kind of, if he was looking after his tyres, if it was a little bit of a game like that, I think you'd see him dropping back maybe a second off of the top two and then keeping that gap. That wasn't what happened. He dropped back a second, then dropped back a further second, ended up about two and a bit seconds off of the race lead. So a bit of a shame there for Callum Voisin, but still, with the position he's in, he's going to take over the championship lead. Here's a look at the provisional race results from round 10 of the GB3 Championship, partnered by the BRDC. Headley, Rees, Voisin, Dunn, Kuharczyk inside the top 5, with Joseph Loke down in 6th, then Ping, Arau, Cresswell and John Bennett getting himself inside the top 10. Taylor, Shin, Stewart, Morales and Waberski, who worked his way up from further down on the grid. Then Roujon, Gerard Shea not having quite the pace that he had back in Spa, Pearson, Iwasaki and Max Esterson after starting from the rear of the field. Costas Paris had a spin at T1, finished down in 21st position, with Staiko, Rashid, Mavliatov and Chris Dooley, after losing his front wing early on in the race, retired from it. Wow, I mean, again, a bit of drama, a bit of a calmer one to start the weekend. Is that how the weekend's really going to continue? I think with the GB3 Championship, that is never the case. When it comes to Sunday, when it comes to tomorrow morning, we know these drivers are going to be going at it hammer and tongs, especially if there is rain around. So out of the car at the end of pit lane, ready to get onto the top step of the podium, James Headley's going to climb out. And again, it is a second victory of the season for the VRD driver. It's actually only the second time he's been on the podium. He had that race victory, as Piers was alluding to earlier on in the championship. It was the second race at Alton Park. It was in really horrendous conditions, really tricky, a lot of rain around, and that'll give him a little extra confidence. I'm sure he'll be hoping for some rain, although to be fair, based on how he was in this race, I don't think it really matters. He had so much speed. It all came down to that race start though, where he just got off the line like an absolute missile, just got that bike point perfect, and away he went. Had that not happened, maybe we'd still see him on the podium, maybe we'd still... Well, I mean, who knows would win that race? I know, obviously, Matthew Rees finishing in second. You'd say probably him, but maybe Callum Voisin would have had a little bit more in the tank. Maybe would have pushed a little bit harder to keep up with Matthew Rees. We don't really know, and we never will. That is the joys of motorsport, and that is exactly how we do things in the GB3 Championship. James Headley then on top. You've got to ask the question, how many more wins has he got in him? Because the pace that he shows off sometimes... it beggars belief. He's had a few struggles this season. He's had a few struggles over the last couple of seasons, really. Obviously back in 2022 as well. But now he seems to convert. We'll head down, though, to Jonas, who's catching up with our podium finishers, including our race winner, James Headley.
Thank you very much, Lewis. Yeah, James Headley currently got his back to me doing some kind of TikTok or something, I don't know. Congratulations, you were on top of the podium at Alton Park, back on top of the podium to start things off here at Snetterton. You must be over the moon.
Yeah, 4th to 1st. I kind of like that one, don't I, off the start?
Yeah, I mean, talk to me about that start then.
Oh, that was just amazing. You know, I knew I had the temp in the tyres, and yeah, I just felt confident. I've never been so focused. My eyes were so, attached to the red lights, and I knew it was game time. So, yeah, massive thanks to the boys. The car's been amazing. I was very disappointed that we didn't get pole, but hey, if we still win the race, it doesn't matter, does it? So, yeah, all good.
Yeah, great result for Arden VRD Racing. And, I mean, Matthew Rees really pushed you all the way there. That wasn't easy for you at all.
Yeah, definitely. That's a lot of pressure, so it's good to keep going through those experiences. And, I mean, I've been racing for a bit now, so, yeah, it's trying not to look in the mirrors too much. And, yeah, just so glad to some of my sponsors came all the way from Canada. And it was my granddad's birthday yesterday. It's Father's Day tomorrow, so a nice little present for them all, so yeah. It's
great to see a lot of people here. What's the plan for this next race then? Can we get another good start from you?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely get another good start. Obviously, 7th to 1st, I don't know about that one. See if it rains, but just see what we can do. Obviously, we know I'm a racer, so let's see what happens. Keep clean.
Excellent stuff, James Headley, your race winner. Congratulations with Arden VRD Racing. Let's have a look for Matthew Rees. Matthew Rees is escaping me. I'm just going to go for a walk. I have to go over here and chat to him. Matt, yep. How are you doing there? I mean, great pole position there, but I mean that start from James was ridiculous.
Yeah, I think both me and Callum got quite poor starts, judging by how much he gained, and obviously the double toe into the first corner helped him pass. Doesn't take away from the start though. It looked mint, to be honest, from that. Yeah, we just need to work on a few things. We'll be there, obviously able to follow, which is quite something around here because all the wash is there, but we'll take it. It's a P2.
We know you're quick around here, and I mean, you know, you kept up and really kept the pressure on him all the way around, so that must be quite reassuring going into the next 2 races.
It is, but I am P5 for the next one, so it's annoying, but we're there, so we have the pace to show. Let's just hopefully we can show it tomorrow. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, cheers, Matt. Matt Rees there, second place with JHR Developments. I'm going to look for Callum Boyson coming around here. Now, Callum, I think my calculations are correct. That means you're now the championship leader because you're very consistent with your podiums. And a question for you from Lewis McGlade, our commentator. Were you saving your tyres a little bit there, knowing that you maybe couldn't challenge for the win?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, around here it's probably one of the toughest circuits to overtake. So after, you know, not the best start ever, I think. Well, I mean, you know, I was still pushing quite a bit, you know, just to keep Alex behind because he was very fast. But at the same time, you know, I didn't want to risk anything. I knew, you know, I was on for a podium position, so there wasn't, you know, much point in risking it all for maybe a position or two. So yeah, I was kind of just hoping the two in front. I saw them go a little bit close, and I was hoping, you know, I'd be there to if there any opportunity came about, but unfortunately not. But yeah, anyway, you know, 2 deserving guys ahead of me. James did a brilliant start, so yeah, fair play to him. And yeah, starting pole for race 2, so we'll try and get the win.
Yeah, another consistent result as well. You know, lots of podiums this season, as we've discussed many times. Callum, congratulations. Best of luck from pole position. Callum Voisin, I believe you're new championship leader. I'm caught on a fence, so we'll just move around there. The podium's going to take place. We'll let Callum go to the podium, and Lewis McGlade will talk you through that podium.
Well, there we go. There's a little bit of an answer as to maybe what was going on there with Callum Voisin. Maybe being a little bit coy, so that's fair enough. Obviously, you know these drivers are pushing to their absolute limit, but you do have to play the long game. If you are new to the GB3 Championship, partnered by the BRDC, the way the tyres work is effectively you get 8 tyres over a weekend, 8 slick tyres, about the ones you would use in dry weather conditions, so it's 2 full sets. You can use them as you see fit across the 3 races and qualifying as well. Most teams will use both sets of tyres in qualifying, and then they decide how they're going to switch them out throughout the races on the weekend. So you do have to do a little bit of tyre conservation. If you do take any wet tyres, if there are any wet races, potential for tomorrow, then that is not taken out of your allocation of dry tyres. The tyre limitation you have is purely for the slick tyres. Anyway, with that waffle over, we'll see our drivers come onto the podium. Of course, Callum Voisin with yet another podium in 2023. I believe it's his 6th one as he heads to the 3rd step once again. Still yet to get to the top step of the podium in the year, but he is looking consistent and he's headed up to the top of the championship. Matthew Rees goes into 2nd position in the race, and again starting to recover a little bit from issues throughout the start of the season. And of course, to the top step for the 2nd time in the year, it is James Headley for the Arden VRD team. He is inside the top 10 of the championship, and results like this can move you that fair amount forward. It can give you that confidence boost. He is looking fast this weekend. He does have to start from 7th in the race tomorrow morning, but if it's wet, I mean, hey, if it's dry, do not count out James Headley. He is looking really strong right now. Is he strong enough to go and challenge Callum Voisin for the championship? We'll have to wait and see. We'll take a look though at highlights from round 10. Highlights from round 10 of the GB3 Championship, partnered by the BRDC, and it was an absolute dream start from Deadly Headley. Around the outside into turn 1, getting the race lead over Matthew Rees. A fantastic move from him, and he didn't look back. Joseph Loke having a couple of problems over Kuharczyk on the rear end, a couple of squeezes as well, and a couple of pushes wide coming out of Agostini and dropping back into the mid-pack for a few of our drivers. It's a difficult circuit at the best of times. Costa Taparis having a bit of a spin in the background and going off the circuit. He'd rejoin, but unfortunately for him, it was outside of the top 20 when he did, dropping right the way down the order. He managed to get one back over on Max Esterson as their battle would continue. Unfortunately for them, it was for 20th position, not a position that we expect these two to fight in. This was a talk of the town though, an absolutely amazing battle between Oliver Stewart in the number 17 and Jared Waberski in the number 20, trying to get around the outside. Going through Palmer was Waberski, and the two would continue on their scrum. scrap. For the race lead, it was brilliant, but Headley was just able to hang on. Coming through the final corner to take victory, Matthew Rees behind. And that's a look at the highlights from round 10 of the championship. We'll now head down to Piers.
We're down here after the race where all the drivers are gathering. We've managed to grab a couple for you. And we're starting with Jared Waberski. Jared, we spoke before you went out for quali and after quali. You've been struggling with pace this weekend, and you said to me, all I can do is try and make some moves in the first lap and see how we'll go from there. Tell us about your first lap, because you made a fair few moves.
Yeah, I think overall the whole weekend we've been struggling with a major underlying issue with the car, and we just haven't been able to sort it. So we've kind of had to accept that's what we have for this weekend, and we've just got to make the best of it. And yeah, I knew the first lap was where I had to make all my moves. Had a really good start. I think I went up 6 or 7 places on the first lap. Yeah, I didn't manage to hold on to all of them towards the end of the race. We're just struggling quite a bit, but I think overall to come from where we did, I think is a decent result.
Yeah, you can only do what you can, I suppose, with the situation you're in. Do you think that you can do the same thing again in race 2 or tomorrow morning?
Yeah, I think we're starting, only 2 places higher for race 2, so it's another 2 places forward on the first lap, hopefully. So, that first lap is where I have to make all my moves and then just try and really hang on to the rest of the race. And hoping for maybe some wet weather, because I think that might save us a bit, because we've been pretty good in the wet. So hopefully it rains tomorrow.
Yeah, quite a lot of people in South Africa probably doing some rain dances overnight. Thanks for chatting to Jared. I think we'll grab Mackenzie Cresswell if he's ready to chat to us. Mackenzie, that was we're just come a bit closer, we get in the shot. It's pretty tough out there. You were right in that fight in the top 10, but it looked like it was very hard to make a move.
It was very difficult, yeah. The dirty air was really powerful today, and as soon as you would get close to the car in front, you would go through a high-speed corner and lose it. So it was really frustrating, and as well with the GT rubber down, there was a lot of marbles off track. So if you did manage to get a run into the hairpin, go on the outside, and then there was just no grip. So yeah, I think after lap 1, it was sort of hope for a mistake from the car in front. That's all you could do. So a bit frustrating, because I know that the pace was there to fight at the front, but that's racing, and we'll hope for more tomorrow.
Of course, you were really fast at Spa, right up there. You nearly got pole position, but for a red flag, and then obviously 2 really strong results. Unfortunately, a tiny error, of course, in race 1, but it looks like that you're getting really gelled with the car. Not quite as fast this weekend. Does it just suit the different circuits, suit different teams a little bit more?
It's possible, yeah. We were quick in testing. We weren't quite the fastest, but we were certainly inside the top 3 all of yesterday and the day before. Sort of missed the window in qualifying ever so slightly, and the margins are so small in this championship now. A 10th can put you 4 places, 5 places back, so it's a bit unlucky with that, but yeah, we've got momentum. We know that the pace is good. We just have to put it all together and hope for a clean weekend, which we haven't got yet, sadly. But we're out again in Silverstone in a couple of weeks' time, so hope for better results there.
Brilliant. Thanks for chatting to us, Mackenzie. Good luck in tomorrow's races. The weather's looking changeable. We've got Nico Christodoulou. Nico, really, really strong qualifying. You were strong at Spa as well. Unfortunately, just a small touch in that race, just basically, that was it, wasn't it?
It was hard because into turn 2, went around the outside, and unfortunately he ended up potting me off, so yeah, and I was held down in the marbles. Not really much I could do. It's just all the crap on my tires, but just got a hit in race 2.
Yeah, we heard from Mackenzie just a moment ago, because there's GTs out this weekend, there's a very much pronounced racing line, a lot of marbles offline. Just for the viewers at home, when you go off the racing line, what does that do?
Yeah, it's just as soon as the tire gets coated in other old rubber, it's from there on your tires are dead, and it takes a long time to get it off. So you gotta avoid getting off the line and stay on the racing line.
Of course, tricky race 1, but we've still got 2 more races this weekend. You got another strong qualifying position for race number 2, pretty decent. Looking forward to moving forward again?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a better start, and hopefully we can actually make it through this race. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
And what about the weather? It looks changeable tomorrow. Does that play to your strengths?
I'd be really happy if it rained. It's just a mix-up because it hasn't really rained much recently. So yeah, I'd be excited for some rain.
Brilliant. Well, good luck tomorrow. Thanks for chatting to us. And I think we've got one more driver, Noah Pinger, your teammate at Arden VRD. Noah, you've had some excellent pace this weekend. It looks like you've really unlocked some pace in the Arden VRD team recently. Just talk to us about your race.
Yeah, the start wasn't great. That's kind of on me. I didn't do as much burnouts as I should, but it is what it is. Unfortunately, my teammate got contact, which gave me my position back, but it is what it is. We had good pace throughout. We were lacking a bit in the slow speed stuff, but overall I felt confident. I learned a lot, and it's great to get a P7 result, right? That's the best we've had so far in a non-reverse grid race. So unfortunately, I shot myself in the foot at Spa and got a 3-place grid penalty, or we would have started where James started. So it's a bit unfortunate in that, but I know we start P4 tomorrow, so I'll be watching James' video and learning from him to try and get a win.
Yeah, great to see from James. And a word on the team. It looks like, as a team, you've really found something recently of strong results in qualifying and speed at Spa. And then again, this weekend, James, of course, taking the win in that race just now. You're working well as a team, clearly.
No, definitely, and we're all working together, which is the big thing. And we all have our little tweaks to the setup, but roughly we're on the same, so it's obviously working, and it's just about maximizing every single corner. Our Sector 1 in quality wasn't great, but Nico's Sector 1 was good, so we're all a bit over the place. If we all put it together, we'd all be 1, 2, 3. So it's confident for that, but it's time to go racing again tomorrow.
Yeah, we look forward to it. Maybe changeable conditions as well, but well done today. We'll catch up with you again tomorrow. Jonas?
I'm back in. No, you know what? I found someone. I'm going to bring in Mark. Come behind me here, Mark. This is Mark Perry. And Mark is the sponsor that James Headley mentioned, who's come all the way from Vancouver, Canada, to watch James race for the first time. And I mean, you've already told me what you thought, but on the camera, I mean, you were impressed.
Well, this is euphoric, and to see what a racer. I mean, James truly is a racer. I'm lucky to be one of his sponsors, and he's running for a great team. Unbelievable. Arden and Gary Horner, fantastic stuff.
Mark's doing a bit of a road trip, Piers.
Oh, wow.
Ask him where he's going
next. Where are you going?
Well, I'm heading to Spain, and then I'm going to the Brit Formula 1 Silverstone, so it's going to be fantastic.
Hey, it's a good few weeks ahead.
BRDC.
Oh, yeah. And also great for you to witness the drive from James, because he did that himself. He drove through the field right on the outside of Turn 1.
He truly is a racer, and fantastic to sponsor him. It's great.
Amazing. Great to catch up with you. And it's good
thanks, Mark. I will let you go and celebrate with everyone. Yeah, I mean, Mark was just telling me there, he's come over, and I mean, he couldn't have had a better trip, really, as being a sponsor of James Headley. To watch him, that start was incredible.
Oh wow! I mean, I think it was the third row of the grid around the outside. Everyone was covering each other off on the inside. James Headley straight around the outside.
Interestingly, the commentary team, if you're coming to one of these race weekends, they have a sort of, the course commentator, and they couldn't believe it was James Headley. They were saying other names. I think they went through 3 different names before they realised it was James Headley, because they were so impressed with that start. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do in that second race of the weekend. That's tomorrow, but we have loads more coming up today. The GB3 Championship takes place. We were last time at Donington Park. Tom Mills absolutely blew away the field. 3 race wins out of 4 races there. It'll be very interesting to see what happens this time around. We'll be back at just about 4:45 this afternoon as we bring you the first race this weekend in the GB3 Championship. And don't forget, 2 more races in the GB3 Championship coming up this weekend. That's all tomorrow.